I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, coming at you with another episode of Pat's Daily, brought to you by our good friends at Prize Picks and Game Time. Today, I am joined by friend of the show, Trevor Sikkema of PFF in the NFL Stock Exchange, which you must watch if you want to know who you should be keeping an eye on for the Patriots. A little way too early in their draft predictions. Today, buddy, we are talking Patriots season superlative predictions. You and Dalton Wasserman did a great video for PFF breaking down the Patriots season. It's not a lot of positivity, I feel like, surrounding this team, especially from the national media, and it was really cool seeing you guys bring some attention to players that deserved it. That inspired the theme for this episode to go through some of the guys who may stand out for the Patriots today. So before we get into it, first of all, Trevor, how are you doing? And did you know that you apparently have a striking resemblance to Kobe Bryant?
I didn't know this until you pointed it out. Obviously, like for anybody who's like, wait, what? To derail the show. If you Google my name for whatever reason, Taylor pointed this out to me. I didn't even know this. If you Google my name for whatever reason, a big picture of Kobe Bryant shows up there. So I'll take the accolades, I guess. I'll take being, one of the greatest NBA players of all time. If people want that to be my comp, if that's where I'm going in life, I think
talents.
That's a pretty good play. Me and Kobe, I've often said, it's just we're very, very similar, in a lot of ways, life ceiling, bank account, all that stuff. So,
yeah,
I'm manifesting that part of it. So I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
That's awesome, buddy. All right, so we're going to start the show off with some quick hitters before we get into the actual superlatives on offense and defense. Starting off with the Patriots' entire offseason, obviously so many changes. We kind of touched on this last time you were on the show, but now that we're a little bit deeper into the offseason, obviously right before the regular season, as a quick overview, how do you feel the Patriots did this offseason? Did they get better or did they get worse?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a cut and dry, like, did they get better? Did they get worse? Because on one side, if you're, it kind of depends if you're on the side of the coin of Bill Belichick had to go. And if you thought that Bill Belichick had to go, yes, by default, you have to think they got better. But if you're somebody who was like, no, it's, Belichick is kind of dealt a crazy hand, although he's also the dealer. So I think that would kind of be weird to sort of argue that. If you thought that Belichick should have stayed, then obviously moving on from what is the greatest head coach in NFL history is a tough pill to swallow. So I think they got better simply because it didn't feel like the team was moving in the right direction with Belichick. It felt like there have just been decisions made since Tom Brady's departure, and including Tom Brady's departure, that were holding this team back. So look, on paper, I like the draft class. I like some of what they did there, but it's going to be a little bit of a slow rebuild here. I think that moving on from the quarterback position and restarting there, being able to restart at the head coaching spot, even if you look at this roster on paper and you say, did they really get better compared to last season? I think those two aspects of just a new quarterback and a new head coach, I would tell you that at least gets better for the direction that they're going. So I would lean on the side of the coin where it's like, yes, I do think they got better. I don't know if that results in wins this year. I just think it presents a better long-term plan for you.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it. There's just a lot of unproven commodities. It's one thing when you bring in, maybe somebody who does have head coaching experience, a quarterback, a young quarterback, who you kind of know a little bit more about, who comes in the league as more of a known. With Drake Maye, obviously, is one of the more raw prospects to come out of the draft. Still super talented, but you don't know for sure what he's going to be at this level. Speaking of Drake Maye, I don't know if you heard, but he will not be the Patriots starting quarterback week 1. That is going to Jacoby Brissett, the veteran. Really, it shouldn't have come as a surprise. He was the starter throughout training camp, the summer, even going back to the spring. Alex Van Pelt and Gerard Mayo consistently called him the starter, even though Gerard Mayo has been a bit confusing in his messaging on who was playing better this summer, whatever. But from your perspective, what is your prediction for when Drake Maye will actually start, and what do you think it's going to take for him to finally get the reins?
So I'm pulling up their schedule right now because I believe that this is the point that I made for the Patriots, but I've made a lot of points for a lot of teams, so I'm just making sure. Okay, yes, this is the point that I was making for the Patriots. So they start 3 out of their first 4 games are on the road, right? And I think that that's really tough for any rookie quarterback no matter what. So the Patriots start their schedule. It's at Cincinnati versus the Seattle Seahawks, which is it's going to be no easy task there. But then it's at the Jets and it's at the San Francisco 49ers. Those are 3 specific. I mean, Mike, look, it's three rough defenses that you're going up against who have been really good over the last 2 to 3 years in the New York Jets, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Cincinnati Bengals. And then you throw in the fact that Mike Macdonald is moving over from what he did in Baltimore as their defensive coordinator to the head coach of Seattle. I think that defense is going to be playing at a high level. Those are 4 tough defenses to start the year against. And so I think you're kind of saving Drake Maye from those 3 out of 4 games on the road, especially because then you are at home versus Miami, at home versus Houston, at home versus Jacksonville, at home versus the Jets. And so it's not like, I don't know how much the competition level gets better because you're going up against Houston, you're going up against Miami, you're playing the Jets again, but at least you're at home for all of those things and you can control that part of the environment. So I wonder if it is sort of the offensive line goes into this as well. Can the offensive line get a little bit of continuity, play a little bit better together during those first 4 weeks where you're on the road, you're traveling a lot. And then those 4 games at home, that stretch of 4 games at home, I think that's when I would target probably bringing Drake Maye in, as long as the offensive line's good enough for it.
Pretty much on the same page. I feel like it's going to happen sometime in October. And the offensive line, I feel like, is not quite as much of a red flag as people think. I feel like people assume they're going to be like bottom 3 in the league. I think the interior has a chance to be one of the better units in the NFL. Then the tackles at that point, it's just like survive for a year. Just get some guys out there that aren't total turnstiles. I feel like with Jacoby and with Drake Maye, it should be all right. And one thing, actually, you mentioned Mike Macdonald. I feel like people are sleeping on how tough the Seahawks defense is going to be, especially one thing that Alex Van Pelt and Drake Maye have mentioned is finding answers to the problems they're going to face. And with that specifically being about pressure packages, you're not going to find a lot of pressure packages that are tougher than Mike Macdonald. Now, the Niners and the Jets, obviously not crazy blitzing teams. Even the Bengals, they're not going to throw a ton of crazy stuff at you. But Mike Macdonald, that's a game where I'm like, yeah, I'm okay if Drake Maye is watching this from the sidelines, studying, gets to have Jacoby be the one who presents those answers. And real quick, I'm actually curious, what do you think of Jacoby Brissett as a starter for however long it is? Another guy I feel like people don't really appreciate what he can bring as the veteran who has so much experience in the Cleveland offense under Van Pelt, even though, of course, he has bounced around a few teams.
Well, I feel bad for Jacoby because I was actually at the University of Florida when he was also at the University of Florida battling for the starting job against Jeff Driscoll back in 2012. And so there was this big debate of who was going to be the starting quarterback of that team going into that 2012 season. It ended up being a really special season for them. They ended up being just shy of reaching or having national championship hopes. Obviously, that was before the college football playoffs, so it was just number 1 versus number 2, but they ended up making the Sugar Bowl that season. And Jeff Driscoll ended up winning that starting quarterback job, but there were a lot of people who were like, no, it should have been Brissett because they were very neck and neck. So it feels like Jacoby Brissett has his entire career just been in this quarterback battle, no matter where he has been. And it's made for a long NFL career for him because I think he is one of the better spot starters that you have in the league or one of the preferred QB2s. But yeah, just never really gotten that chance as a total QB1, as somebody who the franchise was fully invested in at one point in time. But he feels like one of the ideal candidates for this team to have as their quarterback to start the season and at least get things started off on the wrong foot. Because what you don't want is you don't want to get embarrassed for these first couple of weeks. And even though Gerard Mayo has been in the building, it's a new head coach, it's a new feel, new pregame routines, new training camp routines, preseason routine, all that kinds of stuff that you have to take into account. And you want a veteran to at least be able to sort of stabilize the huddle when you go out there against Cincinnati week 1 on the road. And I think that Jacoby, in his veteran presence and how many years he's been in the league, at least gives you that. So I do like Jacoby as one of the preferred spot starters. And I think this is his value in the NFL, and the Patriots are getting it now.
Absolutely. I think Jordan Palmer mentioned it on Rich Eisen's podcast that Jacoby has been in some of the most crazy and honestly kind of toxic quarterback situations where the Tua, you had obviously Deshaun Watson, you had Andrew Luck retiring, and then he kind of gets thrust into the starting job. Just a really crazy career arc for him. Even in New England, literally as a rookie, he's a third-string guy, ends up having to start a couple games for them, which is absolutely insane. But I think we're on the same page there about Jacoby. You don't want him starting the whole season. At some point, you got to put Drake Maye out there, but there really weren't many better options to be the leaders for this offense. All right, let's get into some of these superlatives. First off, let's start with Rookie of the Year. You got plenty of options to choose from this Patriots offensive class. They had 7 of their 8 draft picks were rookies. So of those guys, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact and be the most valuable of these first-year players?
Yeah, I hate for it to be chalk, but it has to be Drake Maye. And this was my answer when we were talking about the New England Patriots on our preview show, but it has to be Maye because the entire season will go as he goes. And I know that he's not starting right away, but like you and I just discussed a few minutes ago, he is going to be starting eventually for this team. And I think that just what he can show in his rookie season will be the determining factor, not just for winning games this season, but also how heavy you're hitting the gas pedal this offseason, right? Like, do you think that, like, if Drake Maye shows that he is anywhere, and I'm not saying that he's going to be CJ Stroud, but like you think of like on a spectrum of what CJ Stroud had versus Bryce Young had, like if he's closer to what CJ Stroud was, then the New England Patriots, they're probably hitting the gas pedal this free agency. Like they're probably looking at potential free agents to bring in, some veterans to pay a lot of money to. It's like, hey, let's really start to attack the top of this division because I think the Bills got a little bit worse roster-wise this season. We'll see how they're playing. We'll see what the Jets are like with Aaron Rodgers, but obviously, like, how much longer is Aaron Rodgers going to play? And I think the Patriots are, if obviously everybody wants to win as many games as possible, but realistically, that's not how it goes for every single team. So I think when the Patriots are looking at their rebuild and their long-term outlook, they're trying to slingshot probably 2-3 years from now. Yep. Okay, you get Rodgers retires. Maybe the Bills are in a bit of a rebuild instead of in this winning window. And then, whatever I don't know what I don't really know what Miami's outlook's going to be. I don't know if they're still going to be like revving on all cylinders or if they're maybe backing off a little bit. But 2 to 3 years from now, I think there's going to be a window for the Patriots to say, hey, Drake Maye, now year 2, year 3. We're going to take the next 2 years to really surround him with a lot of really great players. So he's the most valuable offensive player to me because how he even plays this season, independent on how many wins they get, it's sort of a situation where he determines what their upcoming offseason is going to be.
I've been saying pretty much some version of that, where for the Patriots, I think a successful season, one, is showing growth, but also having Drake Maye showing up potential that you do kind of get in that CJ Stroud area where free agents are like, yeah, I want to come join this. They're building something special there. And it's kind of in between, I guess you're hoping for it as a Patriots fan. It's kind of like somewhere between the Texans and the Lions, where the Lions, it took a little bit longer in the start of their rebuild, didn't really get as much fanfare. But then after 2 or 3 years in, you're looking at it like, wait, okay, I see the vision. Things are starting to click. You're building a team with your own identity. And obviously, if you show some kind of promise this year with the draft capital they've got, they're going to roll over a ton of money into next season unless something nuts happens, obviously, before the trade deadline. They're going to have the resources. You just have to be the kind of destination people want to come to again, because that was a huge problem when they were trying to get guys, including Brandon Ayuk, to join the team. All right, now we're going to stick with some of the young guys. Who is your year 2 jump candidate for this Patriots team?
Overall or just defense or like just offense?
For offense, I'm sorry. Just all offense for this section, yeah.
So I'll go with City So, actually, because, City kind of struggled a little bit last year, certainly to start the season, and then he missed a couple of games, and it was really up and down for him to end the season, as far as I can remember. You guys watched a lot more of his snaps than I did, but it kind of felt that way. But the preseason, it feels like he's playing a little bit stronger. He's a little bit more consistent. And I love some of the flashes of what I saw. I went back not too long ago when I was watching some of his key plays that we have at PFF, which can be some of the best, some of the worst, and even some of those best plays. I mean, just the footwork that he had towards the end of the year, how he was able to pass off a lot of different blocks. Like it felt like he was getting a really good feel for that offensive line and just offensive line play in the NFL in general, coming out of being a 4th round pick. And so to me, I think that he is a candidate to take that starting guard gig and actually be a lot more consistent with it this upcoming season. So I'm going to go with City So.
I really like that, especially because I talked to City at the end of last season, and he mentioned the fact that he spent the entire summer playing right tackle, which we all knew was a crazy thing to be doing because the guy didn't look like he was at home, and then ended up moving in guard, getting thrown into the fire against the Eagles, got a concussion. It was a whole crazy up and down season for him. But I totally agree. He was somebody I was excited coming into this season. There have been some inconsistency this preseason, but I think that's also kind of just the nature of having a different offensive line coach, where everyone raves about Scott Peters, the strike system, and you can see it. Like City So looks way better with his hands than he was last season. And I think the ideal offensive line for this Patriots team is on the interior having Mike Nwenu and either City So or Layden Robinson. But either way, that's a pretty good combo of guards in there. So I love City So. I thought you were maybe going to go Pop, but City So is a good one for that spot.
I feel like a lot of people are going to talk about Pop. So I kind of, obviously, like, he's an easy candidate to say for this, but I kind of wanted to be, the PFF cut, a little deep dive, give City So some love. So I kind of just wanted to, but Pop's obviously a good candidate too.
It's appreciated, man. That's just, you do great work and stuff like that. That makes me appreciate you so much. All right, now let's go. Well, we're kind of in that vein with underrated guys. Who's going to be the most underrated player for this Patriots offense?
I don't know if he's underrated. Like, I don't know if he's like underrated to Patriots fans, but like what Mike Onwenu would be to this offensive line, I think is probably my answer there, because you look at a lot of shifting, some new guys in there. Obviously you got David Andrews, who's been like a mainstay, but you've got to have something around him. And I feel like Onwenu has just been all over the place throughout his NFL career. And when I say that, I mean like playing a lot of different positions, and he has been steady for them. And I feel like he has maybe the highest ceiling of any of the projected starting offensive linemen that they have on their offensive line. So to me, I think that he, again, for Patriots fans, this probably isn't an underrated, because you guys have probably been writing about like what Mike Onwenu has sort of been able to mean for this team and what he would mean to this team moving forward. But I think anybody else who's like outside of New England probably would not give Mike Onwenu the recognition that he deserves. So I would say that he would be the most underrated player for how much he's going to mean to that front.
Absolutely. Even with Patriots fans, I think sometimes people don't realize with the tackle versus guard debate for Mike Onwenu.
Yeah.
So many people want him at tackle because they paid him the money. And then you look at it and he's still one of the highest paid guards, but I think he's a potential Pro Bowler at guard. I think he's one of the best pass blocking guards. And then if he's in the right scheme, he's obviously a dominant run blocker. But even when he's at right tackle, for a guy who's 350 pounds, it's not always going to look pretty. But the fact that he's functional and is probably still one of your best tackles is a real testament to his ability and what he can do on the field. All right, we are going to get to your prediction for the offensive MVP. But first,
Prize Picks this time, and they are America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With over 5 million active members, it's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action this football season. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. Prize Picks is actually running a promo for the month of September where one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you a win on Prize Picks. It's the entire week of September, so you can use that one passing yard as one of your blocks and watch the winnings roll in. You can see it on the screen in front of me. Caleb Williams right now. The over-under is 255.5, or the more or less, rather. But it is 1 yard for Caleb Williams. So make sure to use that and put your Prize Picks together on the app. Download it today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get those $50. It's guaranteed. That's Prize Picks. Run your game.
all right, Trevor, we're back. Give me your offensive MVP for this season. Who is going to be carrying the ball for this offense that's going to need a whole lot of help?
Obviously, I think the answer is Drake Maye, right? I think that's the obvious answer here. The team is going to go as Drake Maye goes. If I could, so like that's my answer. I think that Drake Maye is the MVP for this team. There's no doubt about it. But I don't know if this is sort of a hybrid of maybe an underrated player or a breakout player or maybe a most valuable dude. But to me, we already mentioned Pop. I think Pop could have a really good year this year. I think Jalen Polk's going to have a really good year. If Javon Baker also has a really good year, now all of a sudden we go, all right, you got three dudes now? Like before last year when we were looking at the Patriots, I mean, outside of Douglas until he really broke out, it was like you got nobody. It was basically nobody on the Patriots. And now you could flip the switch and all of a sudden say to yourself, we got three receivers that we can count on now. We got three guys that we can throw the ball to that can be dynamic for us. So Drake Maye's the obvious. He's the MVP. He has the most value. But the difference, in my opinion, between being able to say we've got Jalen Polk as a developing maybe number one, number two type of receiver. We've got, Douglas, who was also pretty good last year, and just those guys compared to being able to say you got a young trio of wide receivers that look at how people talk about the Packers right now with Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. I mean, the way that they talk about that group and the depth of that group was a big reason why Jordan Love was able to have the kind of success that he had towards the second half of the season. There's a difference between having two receiver options that you can go to. When you say three that you were confident in, to me, it means a ton. So I just kind of wanted to bring up Javon Baker at some point because I think the dynamic of having three of those wide receivers, if he also breaks out, could be huge for this team in terms of Drake Maye's development and just how potent this offense can be this year.
I love that you mentioned Javon. I think you know that he's one of the guys that I'm really looking forward to watching this offense. If he starts to figure it out. Like when I wrote about him for my draft profile, it was he could be one of the top receivers on this offense, but it might take time. The summer was disappointing for him. He started off strong, then kind of fell off the cliff. Basically all the inconsistencies that you saw in college with the hands, where he kind of leaves his feet too often, inconsistent work in the sideline, the maturity stuff even popped up. He went on an Instagram Live and kind of poo-pooed Massachusetts police. All that stuff is kind of festered up, but you're hoping, at some point he figures it out once maybe he gets into the groove of the schedule and can really be that game changer. Because I think if this offense is going to truly surprise people, it's going to be because of Drake Maye. Maybe one of the offensive linemen ends up starting, but also because Javon Baker can win those one-on-one matchups outside. Like Drake Maye was really going to him a ton in that way this summer, although it didn't always pay off. All right, now moving to the defensive side of the ball. Rookie of the year is tough, so we can skip this one unless you have strong feelings about Marcellus Dial or Del Penix.
That was basically it was if you were going to ask me for a defensive rookie, I was like, Marcellus Dial did some nice things because of South Carolina, so I guess he could probably get into that secondary rotation. But yeah, obviously they spent a lot of their draft picks on the offensive side of the ball, and that's what they really were focusing on. But I like Dial. I think that Dial is a solid player, and so maybe by default. Did Curtis Jacobs also make? Did he make the 50?
Yes, actually, Curtis Jacobs. They claimed him on waivers from KC. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you got Curtis Jacobs there as well. I thought I saw that on the latest depth chart that they had. Like he's really athletic, Penn State linebacker. He's at least got the athleticism to sort of stay in the mix, but I don't think he's going to be like anything close to a starting linebacker or anything like that. Just his athleticism alone, maybe it's something you bet on. But it was either him or Dial that I was going to mention when we talked about defensive rookies.
Honestly, I feel like both those guys are honestly going to be bigger contributors on special teams. Like Marcellus Dial killed it as a special teamer. He's been working with Slater. And then Gerard Mayo mentioned when you have Curtis Jacobs like flying down the field. So you figure he's probably going to be more of a special teamer for them. This one, you got some more candidates. Year 2 jump candidate for New England. Christian Gonzalez, Keon White, Marte Mapu, unfortunately, missed pretty much the entire summer. So his situation is a little bit murky. But who do you have as a guy from last year's draft class that could really make a leap?
It's so tough between Keon White and Christian Gonzalez. I think I have to go with Christian Gonzalez just because he was playing well. All right. Well, hold on. What's the official wording of how you are asking this? Is it player who can make a leap in year 2? Because I would have told you that Christian Gonzalez is already good. So if I'm going to say a player who's taking a leap, I'm going to talk about Keon White. Who
I think it's Keon White probably.
Okay. All right. So I think that's probably more true to the question that you're asking. I was talking about this on the PFF show, so I got some of the notes here. 52.6 pass rush grade last year, and he had just 1 sack. This preseason, 74.5 pass rush grade, and he had just a 6.3 pass rush win percentage all of last year. 16.7 pass rush win percentage this past preseason. So look, it's less snaps, it's smaller, but the sample size is obviously trending up in a massive direction. And Keon White was always somebody who I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl. I remember watching his tape, and it's like, dude, super athlete for as big as he is along the defensive line. You figured that he was going to be versatile, but I think that fans sometimes don't allow the patience that is required for young rookies who maybe come into the NFL with a versatility tab to actually be good enough at all the spots that they could potentially play to actually be versatile, right? When you get in the NFL, I really kind of want you to find a home. Now, I don't want to limit you. Obviously, if you're great in a lot of different spots, we could use you in a rotation in a lot of different ways. But like for Keon, you can play Keon at 5 technique. You can play him at 4-eye. You can play him at 3 technique. You can play him as a stand-up, as a 7 technique, all the way outside of the tight end. Like you can play him in a lot of different ways because he's that athletic and he's that big and he's that strong. But to say to a rookie defensive lineman, hey, play all these spots and be good at it, it's almost unrealistic to be able to say that. I think he's way more comfortable in a lot of those areas going into the season, and I think that you saw that in the preseason. So I think that Keon White is somebody that's going to be a big-time contributor for them along their defensive line. So I think that he makes the biggest jump.
To that point, I asked Dietrich Wise how it was for him as a young player because he and Keon occupy some similar roles. Keon's more of an outside linebacker type, but they both play inside and outside a ton. And he mentioned he came into the league as a one-dimensional player, even though they did use him all over the place, and it took him a while before he got comfortable. And Keon's even said he feels more comfortable on the inside and really spent the offseason trying to work on his ability on the outside and his pass rush moves. And I'm actually curious, where do you think – you mentioned finding a home. Where do you think his ceiling is the highest, as an interior guy or more on the edge?
Wow. Do you know what he weighs right now? Because I can't remember what he weighed
Only 275.
Is he at 275? I wondered if he was close because like 275's sort of tough to say like, oh yeah, we want you because his explosiveness
285 is what's on the website. Sorry, they haven't updated it since last year, but yeah.
285. All right, went on. He went on a solid winter bulk. Since he got drafted, so it's good. That's good. That's good. Which we want to see. I actually think as a like true defensive end, like a hand in the dirt, 5 technique, 4-3 defensive end is actually where I feel as though he is best because you'll go up against offensive tackles that are a little bit more finesse that I think he's got the power to handle, converting speed to power, just going straight through their chest, good bull rushes. But I also think he's still explosive enough to attack outside of the outside shoulders of offensive tackles who might try to want to win with a little bit more power. So I actually think that 5 technique defensive end is probably where I think he gets the most out of his talent, in my opinion.
I'm on the same page, and it looks like they're going to be using more even fronts, so that should really work towards his skill set.
Yeah, for sure. Then yes.
All right, now most underrated defensive player who's flying under the radar and might not get enough love from Patriots fans this season, or national media, either one, whichever's easier for you.
Man, this is a great question.
You, because this is a defense that I don't think gets enough love.
I agree with you. Mm-hmm. Which player doesn't get enough love on this team?
If you want to throw a couple, I'm not going to be mad at you. If you want to cheat a little bit, we're a pro-cheating show.
I mean, I feel like Juwan Bentley doesn't get enough love, honestly, at linebacker for everything he does for this team. I feel like in the front, they stay super multiple. So, like, for him to be able to play a lot of different spots, the linebacker, I feel like he's underrated. I feel like Kyle Duggar is still underrated, although from last year, he obviously got a lot more publicity. So I think that he's underrated. I think if people look at Jabrill Peppers and probably only for whatever reason, just think about like what he was at Michigan and how I don't think he gets enough credit for how he's matured as an NFL player. So I think that
him captain actually for the first time with the Patriots this season.
Hell yeah. That's also, I think, evidence to it. I wonder if Peppers is my answer. He was the first name that I went to, but I was like, is he underrated? And I guess he kind of is an underrated player. So if I had one answer, I guess it would be Jabrill Peppers because I felt like when he came into the league, it was like, oh, what is he? Is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? He goes to the Giants. You don't know exactly what he is. He was kind of playing a little bit of out of position at times. You go to the Patriots. They're very multiple in their defense and their secondary anyways, but it feels like he's found a home in this defense. So I'm actually I'll go with Jabrill Peppers because I don't think he's gotten the credit for how his game has matured since he was at Michigan and came to the NFL.
We're in lockstep today, man. I think one of the reasons Peppers is so underappreciated is because his roles are misunderstood. I know people hate that he played a lot of free safety last year, but when you look at the tape, it's like most of his best plays were from free safety, like the hit on Devontae Adams where he crunched him, then Jelani Tavai catches it for an interception. Like his range, he also, with Jalen Hurts, he forced a fumble him in the season opener to help the Patriots get the ball back. Mm-hmm. He's a very good free safety, and he mentioned that's part of his game that he feels like has gotten better as he's gotten older. Obviously, I think where people really think of him is as that big nickel slot where he can just blitz and cause a bunch of trouble against the run, but I love that. Jabrill Peppers does so much for this defense, and I don't think specifically as a deep center fielder, he does get enough credit. All right, now we're going to get to the defensive MVP. Another tough one, but first,
the Patriots are playing the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday. You can get in over at Paycor Stadium for the lowest price guaranteed with Game Time. They have a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets to your favorite teams play to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. We're going to do a live read right now, Taylor, with the B-roll, and I'm going to go on the Game Time app on my cell phone and check out just how much time or how much money you can get into Paycor Stadium for. Right now, it's looking like Patriots at Bengals. You can get in for as low as $136. That's down like $25 from the last time I did this read. Not that bad. They have super deals, amazing deals, great deals, all on the site, and they make it super simple to check out, pay, and get to the game. So we're going to do a lot more of these with the Seattle Seahawks coming up because that's going to be a home game. But if you're going out to Cincinnati, make sure you check out Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that is code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, Trevor, defensive MVP. Let's hear it. Who you got? Who's probably going to be the team MVP if we're being honest, given how it looks like the season's going to go for New England?
I wish I could say Christian Barmore, but obviously, like, it's so I don't know. I don't know if there's too much of an update here because I've been trying to follow it a little bit, but is there
still unknown, unfortunately.
Man,
he's eligible to return, so there's some hope, but I think it's more because they're not totally sure yet.
Yeah, and it's tough, obviously. Anytime you're dealing with blood clots, that's extremely serious. There is a defensive tackle in college football who I love a lot, who's one of the top defensive tackles, in my opinion, in the draft for next year. Dante Corleone plays for Cincinnati, nicknamed the Godfather. He is also kind of going through the same thing. I think he's supposed to come back this season, but you just never know. And obviously, like, Barmore is a phenomenal player and truly who I believe would be the MVP of this defense for how, again, he has improved so much throughout his NFL career and what we saw from him last year. So he would be my answer there. But I think other than that, it's got to be Kyle Duggar, just for everything that he does at the second level for you as a potential slot defender, as that linebacker, as that run and chase player. He's the tone setter for you. I think he goes as Kyle Duggar goes. I think a lot of the other pieces on the team, are elevated for how well that he's able to play a lot of different spots. And so to me, I feel like he is going to be Gerard Mayo's kind of like prized possession on that defense. And I don't know if that's what it's been showing in training camp or anything, but when I look at that defense and that depth chart, it feels like Kyle Duggar is sort of where you build things around, especially with Barmore not there. So I'll say that Duggar is the MVP this year.
100%. As much as I love his versatility, I just hope that this season and moving forward, they use him closer to the line of scrimmage, a lot more robber kind of stuff. Because I again, in their nickel stuff, I know they love to be versatile, but at the same time, like, Kyle Duggar's at his best when he can be in attack mode. So if they really do maximize him there, I agree. I think he is going to be that kind of guy. Maybe Christian Gonzalez as well. If he survives this season and isn't torched, then he's got to be one of the MVPs because they have a murderer's row of wide receivers they're facing this year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there as well. That's a really good call out. I wasn't thinking of Gonzalez, but Gonzalez, if he turns into that shutdown cornerback that a lot of people believe that he can, myself included, that the value that brings to your defense when you have that kind of faith. I mean, I've talked to former NFL players, I've talked to defensive coordinators, and I've been like, what is it like when you have this type of corner? And they're like, I mean, you could stick him on one side of the field and be like, nope, we're good actually over there. And you really can just allocate so many other eyes to different parts of the field. So if Gonzalez can become that type of a player, no doubt he's got that type of value too.
To that point, I got a fun little question for you. All right. So the Patriots going up against the Bengals week 1. We have no idea if Jamar Chase is going to play. But if he does, the last time the Patriots played the Bengals, they basically had to live in cover 2 because they had Marcus Jones and I think it was John Jones on the other side. Like, those are their outside corners. And Joe Burrow was like, all right, bet. I'm just going to pull it up to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and you can try to survive if you can. I think the only time it didn't work was a drop from T. Higgins. So now they've got Christian Gonzalez, but you do have Marcus Jones in the slot, most likely Jonathan Jones outside. Yep. Maybe Marco Wilson mixes in because he gives you a little bit more size. What are you doing with Christian Gonzalez? Are you putting him on the boundary, which is what the Patriots did in the opener last year, where they were like, hey, whether it's A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, you're going up against that guy? Are you having him shadow T. Higgins or Jamar Chase? What's your game plan? How are you using him?
If I had a real answer for that, I'd probably be getting paid a lot more money because I'd probably be I'd probably be a defensive coordinator for the Patriots. No, but it's such a tough question to ask. I mean, defense is a team game. It'd be hard for me to not say just shut down Jamar as best you can. Like, give me the battle, follow him around. But the rest of your defense has to be up to snuff for that to even be the case, right? For you to be able to play cover 2 man or cover 1 man. Like, if the rest of your defense is not comfortable playing in that sort of complementary coverage there for him to be able to shadow, then it's almost a moot point. So it really just depends on the chemistry that they have, particularly from their safeties and how much they trust their safeties. Maybe Jabrill Peppers, once again, like bringing his name up, goes a long way into that. Maybe you feel comfortable about him as a single high type of a player and you can get more aggressive with your corners underneath. But the Bengals are a really tough matchup because, unfortunately, for the Patriots, it's also not just Jamar and T. Higgins. Jermaine Burton was excellent this preseason, and he's somebody who played really well when he was at Georgia, really well when he was at Alabama, and I think he's going to be a really solid wide receiver 3 for them all year long. So that almost is like, do you have 3 corners that can play man coverage against all 3 of those guys? Because I don't know many teams in the NFL that do. It's not even an insult to say like, nah, we don't have the guys that can, keep up with those players. So maybe you've just got to sort of shade Christian Gonzalez like to the side of the field that Jamar Chase is in, but you're still playing more zone coverage stuff. So it's just such a tough question because the Bengals are so good.
Is Burton in the slot? Is that what he's been doing for them mostly?
I think so. Yeah. I don't have the numbers up in front of me, but I think that's probably where he's been playing the most.
And then they can all line up all over the place.
I know it's tough.
It's going to be a blast.
It's tough.
It's not going to be easy for that defense at all, even though you know they're going to want to live in man coverage, but we'll see because they do have a lot of undersized guys. All right, buddy, we're going to close it out with floor and ceiling prediction for this Patriots team. What is their best case scenario and what is worst case, most realistic, however you want to phrase it?
Yeah, so the record prediction that I gave them was 4-13. Now, I think that they could probably win up to, I'll say 6 games. Like, I think 6 games is probably the ceiling for this team. I think the floor is probably 3. I don't think this team's going to be like terrible to win like 1 or 2 games. Although the Patriots are, whether you want to say thankfully or not thankfully, I don't know. It depends how you look at it. A bad season from the Patriots simply means you pick high in the draft. Yeah. You're rebuilding. Like, that's where you are in the franchise. So, like, you kind of would want that anyways. Now, you want to, like you said earlier in the show signs of growth, particularly from Drake Maye. You want to make sure you got the guy at quarterback. But outside of that, not the worst thing in the world getting a top 5 draft pick and getting exactly who you need. Maybe it's another offensive lineman. Maybe it's another passing weapon. Maybe it's another defender. We'll see. But this draft's got a lot of really fun skill position players. Hey, maybe you can knock 2 birds out with 1 stone. Draft Travis Hunter, and he can play wide receiver and cornerback for you. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's kind of, I don't mean to get you too excited there for it. But yeah, that's sort of how I see them. Anywhere from 3 wins to 6 wins is kind of what I see from this Patriots team.
But now you gave me an idea. Because now, so for that floor and ceiling, if they finish on either end of that spectrum, who do you think they should take with the pick that they would get?
Yeah, so it's obviously pretty early. Connor and I at NFL Stock Exchange, we're doing our first way too early mock draft actually a little bit later this week. And so we'll be able to give you exactly who we think as the board kind of falls. But off the top of my head, after doing summer scouting, sure, if they want a skill position player, you got a guy like Travis Hunter who's been an unbelievable wide receiver, but you got some freaks at wide receiver in this class. Tedero and McMillan from Arizona. I don't know if any of your listeners caught him, but he had over 300 yards or close to 300 yards this past week. He's just absolutely insane. He gives you shades of Mike Evans. Huh?
Was it a record?
It was a school record. Yeah, not quite an NCAA record, but it was a school record. Yeah, I mean, he just put on an absolute show. He's got shades of Mike Evans. And as somebody who grew up just south of Tampa and is a Bucs fan, I don't say that lightly. And in fact, anytime anybody's brought up Mike Evans before as a comp, I've been like, get out of here. Nobody's Mike Evans. He's an alien. This guy might be a little bit of Mike Evans. I'm not going to lie. Luther Burden III from Missouri as well. If you need a wide receiver, you're going to have the chance to get him. But offensive tackles as well. I think that Will Campbell from LSU is going to be a starting offensive lineman in this league. I think that Kevin Banks Jr. from Texas is going to be a starting offensive lineman in this league. There are some guys to choose from who can really help out the Patriots on the offensive side of the ball wherever they're trying to go.
Trevor, thank you so much, buddy. This has been an absolute blast. Before I let you go, please remind the people where they can find you, what great stuff you got coming down the pipeline on top of the way too early mock draft that they should be looking out for.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I already teased that a little bit, but at PFF, we're changing the way that we do content this season. So what we're really excited about is on Monday mornings on PFF's YouTube channel, we're going to have a grades release show. So myself and Dalton Wasserman, we're looking back at the games that were played on Sunday and for this week, Friday and Thursday as well. And we're going to release the PFF grades on the show and then sort of talk about all of the games and review the games with those live PFF grades that you guys get to see there. So I believe that's going to be going live sometime noon, 1 p.m., something like that on the East Coast time. So be on the lookout for that, but very excited about that throughout the season.
That'll be a must watch every week. Thank you again, brother. Appreciate you taking the time. And thank you all, as always, for watching. Now take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We will see you next time. Peace, y'all.